The OFW economic strategy is not a good strategy. It is a bad economic tragedy. Good morning and welcome to the 5th episode of Our Brand Doctor, and peace be with you. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen, mga kababayan. We've often heard our leaders say, our people are our strongest asset and our greatest wealth. Correct or not? If that is the case, then why do we send them away? Because we have no jobs. So our unemployment rate is not just 5% as what the government claims. It must be 50% because 15 million OFW cannot find gainful employment in the Philippines. They have to search for employment overseas. Our OFWs, of which I am one for the past 20 years, are not modern-day heroes. They are modern-day victims of an economic strategy that has become an economic tragedy. If the greatest economic triumph of the Philippine economy has been the OFW phenomenon for the past 50 years, the greatest tragedy will be if their children and grandchildren will continue to be OFWs themselves. And that's precisely what's happening to this day. So we continue to suffer from a severe and worsening brain drain, from skilled construction workers to healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, medtech, from engineers to IT professionals, accountants, managers, even farmers and fishermen are all going abroad. In fact, if you think about it, the business model of the OFW is the right business model because they sell their talent, their services, not to poor countries, but to rich countries because they earn more. So, why don't our local businessmen learn from our OFW, buy from the local poor, and sell to the global rich? You might ask, Sir Will, what about their annual remittances that reach over $30 billion? Isn't that huge? The answer is right. That may sound huge, but if you take the per capita average of $30 billion divided by the 15 million OFWs, that amounts to only $2,000 per OFW per year. Divide by 12 months, that's only $155, $160 per month per OFW. Divide that by 30 days, that's $5 a day. And divide that by the 4 members or 5 members of the family. That's essentially $1 per person per day. Is that still huge? It's very small. Let me share with you a story, a true story. I was invited to attend the economic briefing of the outgoing economic team of former President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo in 2010. She wasn't there. This was in the Makati Shangri-La. And in attendance was a whole grand ballroom full of businessmen, top business leaders, economists, bankers, foreign dignitaries. So the whole grand ballroom was filled. And the economic team basically summarized or recapped all their accomplishments over the past so many years. And as usual, they were saying it's the OFW remittances and so on and so forth. So I was seated in my chair, taking it all in, and I couldn't resist the temptation anymore. So I asked the question, sir, it seems that all you really have is you're hanging your hat on the OFW remittances. I said, the $30 billion may sound huge. And I went through the math, that if you do the per capita, it's really very small. It's only $5 per household per day. And this was his response. I'll never forget it. It was very shocking. He said, Mr. Arcilla, tama po kayo. Maliit po yun. Pero pag pinagsama-sama po natin yung maliit na yon, malaki pa rin po yun. I was so shocked. I was so stunned. I could not react. I was dumbfounded. You could hear a pin drop in the grand ballroom. NEDA has no plan. Hindi kayo NEDA. Nada. Nada. No plan. That's not an economic development plan. You know, our neighboring countries, Asia-Pacific countries, have a 5-year development plan, starting with Singapore, after they were booted out of the Malayan Federation in the 1960s. And they have been building on these 5-year plans every 5 years. So no matter who sits as the president, there is continuity in the plan. So you get to understand and analyze what is working and what is not working with a plan. You get to improve on what needs improvement, and you get to stop what is not working for the economy. That's what you call progress. In our case, every time there is a new president, palit lahat. There's no continuity. We have no plan. The NEDA is nada. I have read the Philippine Development Plan from 2018 to 2022, okay? Unlike our neighbors, they are probably on their 12th five-year development plan, 15th five-year development plan. But like I said, we keep changing every year. There's no continuity. So I read the Philippine Development Plan, hoping to see a really good plan. And I was quite disappointed after reading it because there's nothing really earth-shaking that will dramatically transform the economy. So I wrote a 10-page response or a 10-page letter with questions and inquiries and recommendations. I didn't receive a single reply, not even a telephone call or a thing. NEDA is nada. A good development plan must be strategic, not tactical. It must be long-term and not short-term. It must be holistic, not atomistic. Kanya-kanyang diskarte. And it cannot be local or parochial. It has to be global, which we do not have. Besides, the OFW remittances do not reflect the true economic value of the OFW. The real economic worth of the OFW is reflected, captured in the profit and loss statements, financial statement of their host companies. It is reflected in the GDP accounting, national income accounts of their host countries. It is reflected in the tax revenues that they pay to their host government because they're exempted from paying local taxes. That is the true economic value of the OFW, not in $5 per day. Think about our dysfunctional economy's flawed business model. We don't grow our own food. We don't sew our own clothes. We don't manufacture our own motorcycles or automobile. We don't export world-class quality products. We export our world-class quality people. They send a small fraction of their salary. With that, we import rice, corn, sugar, livestock, poultry, dairy, eggs. We import our clothes and our shoes, our furniture and our appliances, our electronics. We import our motorcycles and our automobile. We import virtually everything. I remember what our former boss, my former boss at URC said, the legendary John Gokong Wei, when he lamented that we are a country that produces nothing and consumes everything. So we enrich foreign farmers while we impoverish Filipino farmers. So all those remittances of our OFW fly out the window when we import everything. Why? Because we know from Economics 101, every dollar of export makes our country richer, while every dollar of import makes our country poorer. So you can just imagine my utter disbelief when I heard the official statements of three of supposedly the best and the brightest economists. One, an honorable congressman from a province in the southern part of Luzon. Another one, one of the former NEDA Director Generals. And another one is a dean of a school of economics. And they said, we should forget agriculture, quote unquote, forget manufacturing. They have hollowed out. We should just import everything. And then I asked, how are you going to pay for them? This is in a national economic briefing on Zoom last year, organized by the Ateneo Graduate School of Business. And this is what they said. We will just pay for them with the remittances of our OFWs and call center agents. And I was so shocked. I was dumbfounded. They tried to justify or rationalize the import of cheaper commodity like rice and corn and sugar and livestock, poultry, vegetables and fruits, saying the Filipino consumer will benefit from lower prices. But they conveniently forget, or they're totally ignorant, that the housewife who should benefit from the lower prices is married to a farmer or a fisherman who has just lost his livelihood because you've imported their product. Oh my God. Bobo ang ating mga ekonomista. They are not economists. They are fake economists, pseudo-economists. For you to say something like that. My late father, who was a top surgeon, would have a term for them. He would call them charlatans, quack doctors. Why? If you think about it, they have no track record, zero track record in building an inclusive economy. They must take responsibility for the exclusive economic growth the Philippines has been suffering from for the past 40 years. They are responsible. We, the Filipino people, must demand accountability from these pseudo-economists. I call them con artists for their systematic destruction of the productive capacity of the national economy. Why do we call them con artists? Because they have absolutely zero track record in building an inclusive economy where the poor become middle income. They are responsible for an exclusive economy for the past 40 years, where only the rich got richer while the poor got even poorer. They are responsible. They must be held accountable. So, the OFW economic strategy is not a good strategy. It is a bad economic tragedy because not only do we suffer from severe and worsening brain drain that reduces our intellectual capacity as a nation and productive capacity, but we also suffer from the untold social cost of broken families, dysfunctional families, the abuse over women overseas, and our women turning to lesbianism, our teenage daughters left unsupervised and ending up with teenage pregnancies, and our young boys growing up without a proper father figure and turning to homosexuality, which is counter to the natural law and therefore immoral and offensive to God. Thank you very much for joining us in the 5th episode of our Brand Doctor. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify you of our next video where we will talk about bakit minamalas ang Pilipinas. Malas ang Pinas.